Live from our studio here in Kokolomimile, Accra, I am MFA Akosia Adeti with Joy News today. The news is live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 125. Our headlines today. John Mahama's transition team says it has blocked the payment of over 240 million Ghana cedis to an entity that had conducted business with the electricity company of Ghana.
Do not commit the incoming government to some of these things, especially because of the precarious state of our finances. It would be highly irregular and improper.
Angry youth in KJB set fire to immigration vehicle after fatal accident.
At the scene, I realized the young man was dying. We later found the lady far away in the bush. I was far from the scene when I realized the vehicle was touched, but I cannot tell those who did it. I know the two who died. The rider was a motor mechanic apprentice, while the lady was a makeup artist apprentice, both at KJB.
Sadly, 3 feared dead, others in critical condition and receiving treatment at Winneba Trauma Hospital following an accident at Goma Otreko in the central region. We have details of this, plus business, sports, world news, and showbiz in this bulletin. Please stay for details. Welcome back to the bulletin. Now, first on our bulletin this afternoon, the Mahama transition team says it has blocked the payment of more than 240 million Ghana cedis to an entity that had conducted business with the electricity company of Ghana, ECG. According to the team, the payment is being withheld pending further discussions by the joint transition team on Friday. Addressing the media after the first day of the transition process, Felix Kwachi Ofosu, spokesperson for the incoming government side, stated that they raised serious concerns over ongoing last-minute recruitment and payments being made by the ongoing administration.
The issue of last-minute recruitments and payments. I'm sure you have heard of various last-minute, rather irregular recruitments in some ministries, departments, and agencies, Bank of Ghana, GRA, the Ministry of Interior, and what have you. We need to place on record that these recruitments, especially regarding the time that they are being made, would have severe fiscal implications for the incoming government. For instance, we have picked up information, and indeed we've seen documentation relating to efforts to pay over 240 million Ghana cedis to an entity that is supposed to have done some business with the electricity company of Ghana. Now, if this was being paid to IPPs so that they could keep the power on, one perhaps would not have any issue. But it is being paid to an entity whose work, in my view, is not as critical as IPPs. Now, this sort of payment is quite huge and would affect the public purse in a manner that could be detrimental if not regularly done. So the NDC side of the transition team requested that this payment be put on hold pending further scrutiny and discussion to ascertain, first of all, the basis for the payments and whether or not it is even proper to make such a payment. I think that good governance requires that the incoming government is given the opportunity to make these decisions. Elsewhere, governments do not operate in this manner. In the twilight of a government, you do not commit the incoming government to some of these things, especially because of the precarious state of our finances. It would be highly irregular and improper to saddle the incoming government with these payments. So we raised strong objection to these maneuverings and requested that they be put on hold. The government side agreed to put it on hold pending further discussions at the next meeting of the transition team on Friday. And we will forcefully insist that this is done. There is precedent. In December 2016, 17 December 2016, and a letter to that effect was read by a member of the NDC side of the transition team. the MPP side, through Mr. Osafomafo, requested that any such commitments regarding recruitments or payments be made only with the express approval of the incoming government. So we are surprised that that same precedent is not being adhered to.
Meanwhile, former Finance Minister Seth Tekpe has been explaining how the John Mahama administration will work to ensure life is better for the ordinary Ghanaian.
The point is that we have been in decline for quite some time. We defaulted. Our deficit is low. Growth has been low. So 2 points, which is why what President Mahama was clarifying. There was a professor, again this morning, or an analyst, who made a very important point on the news. I'm quoting that so maybe you can, listeners who listen to you, that certain sectors did not perform well, and they cited agri. So the growth we are talking about is headline. That is the average of, let's say, 4 or 5 sector growth, agri, financial services, and the rest. So the caution President Mahama was pointing to is that the headline, right, and it happens with most governments, the headline may be driven, by oil prices going up and others. The headline may be because of, let's say, industry, picking up. It could be. But if you look at the release, there are certain sectors which are still, quite suffering. So what he meant to state is that, yes, the current president may look at the headline, but that's only one index.
Let's take you to Kumasi next, where the National Democratic Congress parliamentary candidate for Bantama, Simon Adai Dapa, and some party members rushed to the Kumasi depot of the Metro Mass Transit to stop unidentified individuals from stealing part of faulty buses. More than 70 of the faulty and abandoned vehicles parked at the depot have been rendered scraps. Simon Adai Dapa says the NDC will stand against stealing and vandalism of state property. There's more in the following report.
Some state institutions have come under attack. In the Ashanti region, Kumasi Metro Mass Transit was attacked by some individuals who have been vandalizing and selling parts of buses grounded due to mechanical faults. The parliamentary candidate for the NDC in the Bantama constituency spoke to Joy News.
We are here to protect the government property. We are here to protect this institution from sinking. We have to sell the buses because we need this job alive. We need to create jobs for the youth. That's why we are and we are telling them not even the boat will leave this premises today, because we have to make sure we inject into this business, create more jobs and then employment for our people. We have around 79 buses they've sold, which was about to be sold as scrap, and then people were about to move it, but we've made sure they are not moving. We've heard that from last night up to this morning, they've moved around 60 buses from these premises. They've sold all, no, the 79 is still around. They were yet to be cut as scrap. But then right now, what they've sent out already, what they've sold out as scrap is almost 60 from last night up to this time. Knowing they are going to opposition, they want to collapse this institution. And then that's what we are fighting against.
The Metro Security Coordinator Alhaji Naj says the act of hooliganism should not be allowed.
This time round, I am telling you, I swear, and it's not going to happen.
So before the Bama Sanyo Manakoso Bantama for any break. I say number of Bantama MPP for do say no mutimicreti. I come in look and they health insurance. And to my dream is so move guno, no more sign, no more concern ya beya Bantama for ye, but Bravo Bantama, I ain't yet many Bantama for ye.
For Joy News, Nana Bwachi Dankwe Yadom, Kumasi.
Well, we shall go to my colleague at some point in the bulletin, but Nana Bwachi Yadom, and then we'll bring you details on that particular story. But let me take you to Bawku, where the presidential and parliamentary elections in Bawku Central Upper East region proceeded peacefully despite fears of violence due to ongoing chieftaincy tensions. The calm was quite welcoming. That it's relieving to know that residents and observers alike also noticed that there weren't any form of dispute or violence. Albert Sorry reports from the volatile area on this journey covering the elections.
On the eve of the election at the regional police headquarters in Bolgatanga, I found many voters stranded.
And now, because of the security situation, they need to search your bags and then search your wares before you can now load them in the truck. The market trucks are not willing to go. So everything is now being dumped here.
We have been stranded here for days. A lot of people have been sleeping here.
Some of the voters managed to arrange their transportation and journey in groups to Bawku, escorted by police patrols. But hundreds more were anxiously waiting and getting apprehensive.
Commit yourself for them to screen you fast and put you in the cars.
3 police officers joined us in my car while the rest of their team drove behind us. We made our way to Bawku.
This evening we saw a lot of military men inside. They came to town, so I'm sure with that the town will be stable for us to vote.
The morning of election day, we arrive at the Bawku Municipal Assembly, where the office of the Electoral Commission is located. The Deputy Constituency Returning Officer, Hassan Dan.
We started the deployment yesterday at the distance places. We met the security on 3 occasions. And so that exception is given to us as we are in the EC jackets. That will be at least a pass for the curfew.
We proceeded to visit some polling stations. It was peaceful everywhere we visited. As the polls drew closer to an end at 5 p.m., one thing was also on our minds: the curfew, which was still in place in Bawku, beginning at 6 p.m. At 7 p.m., we decided to go and wait at the Bawku Divisional Police Station, where we had been informed the Constituency Results Collation Center would be.
Now we are being told to move to the office of the Electoral Commission. You see that some Electoral Commission officials in the company of security are going there.
Later, we learned that the ballot boxes were only to be received here before the results pink sheets were taken to the police station where the collation was to be done. The process took all night. The next morning,
MPP Paul Gobre Alali, 3,855 votes. Mahama Yarga of NDC, 25,350.
Mahama Ayariga won by a landslide. This will be his 5th term and 4th time consecutively.
Well, we've got my colleague Albert Sorry on Zoom to give us more on this story. Now, Albert, I know that even before or prior to the elections, you and I were quite concerned. But it's quite relieving to know that the elections proceeded without any violence. But up until today, it's rather sad that apart from Bawku and in Accra, there are many other stories of violence and disturbances. Bring us updates currently today. How was Bawku? And please tell me more stories about how calming the elections was. Hi, Albert.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. So Bawku is still calm. There haven't been any incidents even after the election. I must tell you that it was really surprising for many people because knowing how Bawku has been over the last 1 or 2 years, many people thought that it's going to be one of the hotspots in this particular election. It turned out, it went actually, very smoothly without any incidents. Not even a single sound of a gunshot was heard anywhere. contrary to what people were afraid could happen.
Well, Albert, take me through the return of voters. You know, you reported how they journeyed to go and vote and how the police had to escort them to the Bawku town. But how did they return back to their various homes? Was the police also still with them?
Yes, so the expectation was that if you are still going to come in groups, normally the escorts are needed if you have to pass through the territory of let's say, okay, so what's happening is that the two factions in the conflict have known territories, and if you belong in any of them, it's not in your own interest to pass through a territory that belongs to the other.
Right.
And so that's why the escorts are needed. If you need to go through the territory of your opponent or your enemy, for a better word, to get to your destination, then the escorts are needed. And so this was why it was important for the voters who were stranded on the eve of the election to get escorts into Bawku. In fact, on the morning of the election, I saw some of them arriving into the town, still being escorted by military and police patrols. And so the same arrangement was going to be made for people who wanted to return to their various destinations. But the thing is that you will have to go and request the escort for it to be given. And so for the voters who were returning, especially if they were doing so in groups, using buses or other public means of transport, then the military and police patrols were still available to give them the escorts back to their various destinations.
Okay, Albert, finally, before I let you go, I know that the curfew is still ongoing. Despite that, would you say that business is ongoing and everybody is getting on with their life peacefully and calmly?
Yes, that's exactly the case. When I arrived in the town on the eve of election and election day itself, I was expecting that many people were going to be indoors for fear of their life, as we have seen in the past. It turned out to be rather the opposite, because many people were found on the streets moving about their normal daily activities. Even when we were leaving the town after the declaration of results, it was still the same thing. We even saw some supporters of the NDC dancing on the streets. So it's been calm since after the election. There haven't been any incidents whatsoever up to this point.
Thank you, Albert. You're such a champion. Thank you so much for bringing us that report from Bawku Central. Now let's go to Kumasi, where we brought you that story of some sort of vandalism and stealing. My colleague Nana Boakye Yadom joins us live here. Nana Boakye, so tell me, we want to get clarity. There have been reports that it's the coming administration, the NDC supporters, that have been starting some sort of vandalism and stealing and destruction of some properties. But the report seems to suggest otherwise. Bring us the clarity in that story.
And so, MFR, the clarity of the story, that is what has brought us here to the Metro Mass Transit yard in the Ashanti region. We just spoke to the manager in charge of this yard, and he has been telling us that the incident had occurred on Monday, post the December 7 election, where some individuals who were wearing T-shirts of the National Democratic Congress came in to stop the managers from disposing of some of these buses that they've heard were being disposed due to the laws of the New Patriotic Party. And so he tells us that the individuals who came here came with the intention to stop them from disposing of the buses. He said that before the elections, Metro Mass had sought permission from the presidency to dispose of some buses. He says that there was an agreement that when these buses reach a level of not being able to use economically, they would have to be sent out of the place, or they would have to be disposed. And that is why they intended to dispose of the buses, and not because of the aftermath of the elections. But the individuals who came in with the parliamentary candidate for the Bantama constituency came in with the intention of stopping them from disposing of the buses, claiming that the buses were being disposed because the NPP had lost the elections. They made their way into the Metro Mass Yard in the Ashanti region, and they wrote on some of these buses, and they wrote, you can see a bus behind me, they wrote "not for sale," claiming that the officers or the authorities here are trying to sell the buses illegally because the NPP had lost the elections. They said that they disrupted the processes of working here on Monday and Tuesday. Even yesterday they were here, and because of that there were heavy security here to make sure that they would not make away with anything. But even with the heavy security presence here, there were new bus batteries in there. There were attempts to take them away, but then the security personnel in here stopped them. He says that the issue has become a major headache for the managers in the Metro Mass Transit Yard in the Ashanti region, because they've been saying that this is not the intent or the intention behind the main reason of disposing of the buses, but the claims leaves them with some headache, saying that if it continues or persists, it is going to be very, very troublesome for them. And so the individuals, as I speak to you today, they've not been allowed to enter the place because security presence here is very tight.
Okay.
But they said that some of the buses that they are working on have been destroyed, and the glasses have been broken into. And as I speak to you, it is going to come at a cost. That's an additional cost to them. And that is also going to be a burden, not just for the managers, but even for the government that is going to take over from President Akufo-Addo. And so they say that security authorities should make sure that this Vandalism Act do not persist. This is not the only place that has seen the incident. In the Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council, we've heard of the same incident there. At KJTI yesterday, some people who are described as party supporters of the National Democratic Congress went to the KJTI market to lock offices and even lock the toilet facility to prevent people from accessing it. And this has become a worry to them. We spoke to the authorities at the KJTI market, and they also complained that if this thing continues, it is going to halt their operations in the large market. And so, the situation here is that individuals...
Nana, take me back to the Metro Mass bus terminal. How many buses are we talking about? Do we have at least an idea of how many buses that they were hoping to scrap?
Well, there are about 77 of these buses in here that they were hoping to scrap. In fact, most of the buses that you see around here are being worked on. This is the main yard. When you go down there, that's where they have the main yard with operational cars parked. But this place is where they have cars that they are working on, cars under maintenance. And so they were able to break into this place to take away with some batteries and some of the other parts of the buses that they are working on. And some of them, they say that are near completion, but because they were able to break into them and destroy them, they are unable to send them to the roadside for them to operate anymore, MFR.
Well, again, finally, before I let you go, and so do we know how long these buses were stationed and were not operating because they're not functional? Do we know how long they've been there?
Well, MFA, we spoke to the manager, and he says that they've been here for like 10, some of them have been here for 10 years, 5 years. They've been working on them. It's something that they do regularly. And even for them to dispose it, it has been there occasionally. They dispose some of these buses. Some of them, when they spend 5 years working on them or 10 years working on them, they would have to dispose them. But this time around, they seeked permission from the presidency, and it was done even before election. And so for some of these buses here, it is for them to work on them occasionally, MFR.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nana Bwachiyadun, for bringing us that story from Kumasi. Now, moving on, the Electoral Commission has moved the collation of disputed results in some constituencies in the Eastern region to the police training school in Tesano, here in the Greater Accra region, to avoid chaotic scenes witnessed previously. Now, let's speak to my colleague, Sweetie Abochi, for more on this. Sweetie, and so I know that you're quite close to me, Tesano, here, but what is the situation like, really? Have we moved the collation here, and is there any EC official over there? Hi, Sweetie, if you can unmute.
MFI, can you hear me now?
Perfectly.
Great. So you are right. The Electoral Commission has moved the Collation Center for some constituencies in the Eastern region to here at Tesano Police Training School. And here there's an altercation ongoing between the NDC side and NPP side. And the argument is that the NDC side agents are not here with the pink sheet. Meanwhile, collation is ongoing. And I want us to listen to Samuel Bawku from the camp of the NPP and Baba Jama from the camp of the NDC, and they explain why the altercation ensued.
And in Sawama Duejiri. Okay, the process started from Saturday. Post Saturday, declaration couldn't happen because of there was a mob action, a violent action. Since then, we haven't been able to get who the winner for these constituencies were. It was scheduled to take place in Koforidia. It got aborted. The EC needed protection because the commission felt at a point that without security, they cannot do their work. We've all witnessed what is happening with the burning of collation centers and all. They moved it to this secure place at the police training academy. Fantiakwa North, we've completed the process. The NDC decided not to turn up after the collation. The EC, in exercise of its powers under the Constitution, proceeded to declare the results here by the deputy returning officer. Then,
I'll come to you in a bit.
No problem, Baba. Then we go to Akwetia. In fact, there's no law that says that we should wait for NDC 1 year before we conclude an electoral process.
What's the explanation they're giving you for the absence?
They're not here. They saying we should wait for them. Where are they? The EC calls and they say they won't come.
Well, because our story is quite close to us and my colleague Sweetie is there, we definitely will bring you how that is ending at the Tessanol Police Training Center in our subsequent bulletin. But moving on, a group of civil society organizations that monitored the 2024 presidential and parliamentary elections are asking for an end to post-election violence. The group also wants the outgoing government and relevant stakeholders to ensure a peaceful transfer of power. We've been joined by Dr. Kojo Asante. He is Director of Programs and Policy Engagement at the Center for Democratic Development, CDD, Ghana. Doc, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're very much aware that you met with the IGP sometime yesterday, and you've expressed concern amid you acknowledging the work and so far what they had done during the elections and even post-elections. But I still would like to hear from you why exactly, because I would have thought that by now elections are over, we're still seeing violence, but what exactly took you to the IGP?
Yeah, good afternoon to all your listeners. Yeah, I think it was important to engage with the IGP, who is head of the Election Security Task Force. I think in the last 2 days, there was a lot of concern about, trying to bring all these rampant acts of vandalism and disruption at the Collation Center, to a halt so that we can conclude the electoral process and then also allow for a conducive environment for the transition. But we needed to understand how the police were engaging on these issues, because there was a certain sense that, the police are not doing enough and all of that. And we didn't want to just go, blindly without being informed of exactly how the police were going about their duties. And I think it was quite insightful engaging with them, because I think they were mindful of what had happened in 2020 in terms of the way the police and the security services the posture they adopted, which in some scenarios led to fatalities. And this time around, they were conscious not to escalate issues when they happen. They were happy, or I would not say happy, but at least they would not take somebody's life if it meant that the person might be engaging in vandalism. And what they have done is that even though at that material moment they are not able to sort of arrest people, eventually they do go after those people, and you see a number of arrests that have happened even after the fact.
Right.
Because there's a lot of video and other kinds of evidence that's available to identify the perpetrators who have carried out these unlawful acts.
Well, Jack, I'll stay with you again. Prior to the elections, there was quite some gray area of persons saying that the military didn't have a role to play during this election. I also saw that you were commending them that they helped very much during these elections. Where do you stand really? I've seen that you've commended them. Moving forward, you think that the approach that they used in this election should be maintained?
I think this was very, very important. We were very concerned about the military's standard operating procedures when they come in. Because when they come in, it's a moment of last resort, and most times they are there to neutralize. And those kinds of engagement can lead to fatalities. But you would observe that this time around, in most cases, even though they had their guns strapped, they were holding canes and other kinds of, to try and just, caution people. In some cases, they were taking videos of people, misbehaving and all of that. And I think that has helped. At least we have not identified any, we have had fatalities in this election as well, but it's not as a result of security, action or something like that. So, that approach, I think, has helped always to de-escalate. And then, when people are aware that they will still be held accountable for their actions if they misbehave. And I think the key thing now is making sure that there's a real deterrent. We follow all these cases right to the end, and we don't have a repeat of what happened in 2020, where the 8 persons who died, we still couldn't conclude it after 4 years.
Thank you. Many thanks for joining us, Dr. Kojo Asante. And some of the things that they recommended in the statements was what you saw on your screens. Now, moving on and going back to Kumasi, a water crisis is looming in Greater Kumasi as workers of Ghana Water Limited protest the demolishing of company property by a private developer. Fence walls at the company's guest house and management's residence have been torn down, with more demolitions expected. Well, Joint News investigation revealed the land is part of 400 acres ceded to the Asante, which includes relocation plans. Emmanuel Bright-Kweku has more and is joining us via Zoom. Emmanuel, good afternoon and thank you. I want a bit more clarity to this story. I know that you've been following it from 2022. Please bring us details of the story.
All right, so MFA, according to the group, as you rightly mentioned, on the election days, a day before the election, a private developer encroached a property of theirs, 2 of their managers, and destroyed their fence. And some 5 others have also been earmarked for demolition. But what we understand is that this particular property that the workers of the Ghana Water Company are contending as part of a land that was leased to Otumfuo or was ceded to Otumfuo the second in 2023. And so in that particular land is the Ridge residential area. It's around Denyame and Ishaeso. And so for that particular land, every private developer was expected to be maintained. However, those that were occupied by government officials, they were to be relocated to another place that was given by the government. That's the Regional Coordinating Council to them. And so from our sources, we understand that the Regional Coordinating Council have developed a house or a facility to house all of these persons who are supposed to move from the land, which is some 400 acre that was ceded to Otumfuo the second. And so they are supposed to move from this particular location to the place that the Regional Coordinating Council has developed for them at this particular area. But according to the group themselves, they have not had any communication of a sort from the Regional Coordinating Council. They told us emphatically that the communication is supposed to happen between them and the head office, between the head office and the Regional Coordinating Council, and not the region. And so, MFA, this is what is currently happening.
Well, Emmanuel, I'd like to talk to a worker from the Ghana Water Limited, if you have him over there. But I want to understand, and I want to understand if there has been another place that's been allocated to you as workers. What then is the challenge?
Okay, so Mr. Opoti is on. Okay.
Right. Please tell me your name and your. Yes. All right. Please go on.
Okay, my name is Emmanuel Opoti.
I'm the vice chairman for the Senior Staff Association.
All right, Bright, please, what is the challenge if there has been another place that's been allocated to you for relocation? What really is the challenge?
Well, thank you very much. The challenge actually is both procedural and legal. First, the fact is that the property in contention is the property of Ghana Water Company Limited. As you know, Ghana Water Company is a limited liability company. And so its properties are vested in the directors of the company.
Yes.
What we are saying is that if anybody has anything on the property, want to alienate it for himself or whatever, that must be done in conjunction or with leave from our head office or the directorate, that is the board. Now, we are actually on this path, especially because the demolition exercise that was done without recourse to us. We were not notified. And we believe that the impunity with which the person went into our space and then destroyed the thing shouldn't be countenanced, and we are not going to countenance it. Indeed, the said properties that is being alleged have been allocated to us is not true. Actually, after the demolition exercise, they brought some keys. But then we asked them that we cannot accept anything until the head office has given us leave to accept them. Now we are aware as a union that our head office has spoken with the coordinating council and have expressed our desire and resolve to maintain ownership of these properties. And so we believe that whatever it is that they want to do, the procedures must be followed and the right people must be contacted for whatever negotiations or leaves that will be or needed to be obtained.
Right, thank you for talking to us, but I'm certain that we'll come back to you again in our subsequent bulletin, maybe our evening news, and then you bring us more details to find out whether you have triggered the legal processes. But thank you so much for bringing us clarity, at least the beginning of the clarity to this journey, this story that is quite developing. Thank you. Now, angry youth in Kejebi, Oti region have set fire to an immigration vehicle involved in a deadly accident that claimed the lives of 2 teenage apprentices. The incident occurred when the vehicle allegedly attempting to overtake collided with the 2 young victims on their way home from work in Okanta. Now, my colleague Peter Senu was there and has more on this developing story. Peter, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Do we know the families of these 2 persons who have lost their lives and the current situation with the persons involved in the immigration vehicle?
Yes, both families are residents at Menusu. Menusu is a border community here in KJV. And so the families are there. They are not related, but it's a Muslim, 2 of them are Muslims. And I was there this morning, and they have since been buried about an hour ago, according to Islamic tradition. The family wouldn't make any comment on record except to say it is Allah that gives, it is He who takes. And so they will leave everything in the hands of God. To console them. And so that has been the situation at Menusu this morning. They have been buried.
Has there been any arrests so far? Police investigation, anything started at all?
Well, the vehicle that got involved in the accident, we are told, was being driven by the immigration commander himself. And so currently, we do not know his whereabouts, whether he has been arrested officially or not. Attempt to inquire is not yielding any vital information. We can put that, but we are uncertain of his whereabouts and whether or not the police are going to take any action on him currently.
And so we only have information on that he's just one person driving that purported immigration vehicle.
Yes, we cannot confirm the number of persons on board. But when I got to the scene yesterday, I saw a number of immigration officers leaving the scene. Okay. My information was that they were brought in to, so to say, protect the vehicle because of the anger the youth were exhibiting yesterday. But, well, they said that the vehicle was touched because of some comment from the officers who said that if they were men, they should touch the vehicle for them to see. And that was what got some of them angry. And according to
Well, thank you so much, Peterson. And again, we'll follow that story to the very latter and bring you details. You're watching Joy News today with me, Emefa Akosiadeti. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, Daryl will bring you business.
Hi, welcome to Business. My name is Daryl Kwao. The Bank of Ghana has revealed that it has adopted artificial intelligence tools to aid monetary policy decisions and regulation. The move is part of efforts to improve data gathering and accuracy in line with current developments on the market. First Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Maxwell Opoku-Afari, disclosed this at an international conference on business, finance, and economics at the University of Ghana Business School.
Optimizing policy implementation. In the area of monetary policy, AI can be used for predictive analysis, provide real-time data analysis, help identify potential risks and vulnerabilities in the financial system, and finally, help optimize monetary policy instruments such as interest rates and quantitative easing. At the Bank of Ghana, AI has been employed to help with forecasting, to generate near-term forecasts. Through the development of algorithms and creation of crawlers, AI has been used in gathering prices of goods and services in firms that have internet presence. The data is scraped off the website of these firms that have internet presence, shipped the data back to the office for processing. Our AI-generated inflation provides us with real-time inflation numbers, and this is novel. And our peers in the sub-region have requested technical assistance in this area to also help support work in the jurisdiction. So let me elaborate a bit here. You know, Bank of Ghana is...
Now, the Bantama Rural Bank in the Ashanti region is adopting a set of practices to promote environmentally friendly banking in all of its branches. Here's more in this report.
The impact of shifts in weather pattern on livelihoods continue to negatively affect sustainability of the environment. In mitigating the impact of climate change, industries are implementing actions aimed at reducing greenhouse emissions from human activities. Board chairman of the Bantama Rural Bank, Constance Phyllis Putik, has announced the bank's plans to promote environmental sustainability.
We will prioritize sustainability by promoting green banking practices. This includes reducing paper usage, adopting energy-efficient technologies, and raising awareness of environmental stewardship within our bank and the communities we serve.
At the 40th Annual General Meeting of the Bantama Rural Bank, the board chairman presented an improved financial report. For the 2023 financial year, the bank grew its deposits by over 152 million cedis, representing 22%. Short-term investments went up by 36%, loans and total assets growing by 23% and 20% respectively. Even before the end of 2024, positive increase in figures are being realized.
As the macroeconomic environment in Ghana continues to evolve, we will closely monitor trends in inflation, currency stability, and commodity markets. Given our experience navigating these challenges in 2023, we are prepared to adapt our strategies to maintain growth, support rural development through continued support for local businesses and agricultural financing. We are dedicated to playing a vital role in the economic stability of rural communities.
For Joy News, Nanaya Ochima reporting.
And that's it for this segment. The news continues after this break.
Welcome back. And on World News today, Ethiopia and Somalia have agreed to end their bitter dispute over Addis Ababa's plan to build a port in the breakaway Republic of Somalia and following talks in Turkey. Turkish president also welcomed the historic agreement, which he said will eventually ensure landlocked Ethiopia's access to the sea. At the press conference, he held hands with Prime Minister and Somalian President, who both agreed to respect one another's sovereignty. The two neighbors have been at loggerheads since January, when Ethiopia signed a maritime deal with Somalians, now which Somalia considered as part of its territory. That will be all for today on Joy News Today with me, Emefa Akosia Adeti. There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com.